Hi, everyone. Today is class number 4 of the Art of Being Smart Academic Excellence Training Program. And I'm actually really excited to teach this to you because I think this is the part that really separates the average performers from the top performers. So, this is the class that's actually going to make the huge separation. And the reason why it's going to make such a huge separation for people is because now you're going to be learning how to use your mind in a way that maybe you've never even been taught before. Okay. And I'm going to actually explain this to you in quite a bit of detail. But as we do this, I really want you to understand that a lot of this material, I'm going to do my best to teach it to you, but a lot of this material is, as far as I'm concerned, not taught anywhere. Okay. And if you really grab this material and you get a hold of it and you really comprehend it, you will see yourself get results that you never thought were possible. Okay. And when I started applying this stuff, results started to happen in my life which I didn't think were possible. So I'm going to share them with you and really try your best to follow along. And I think it's very simple. It's simple stuff, but it's gonna hurt your mind a bit because you're gonna be like, well, I thought that's the way you do it, and I'm gonna tell you, well, no, that's actually not the way you do it. You got to do it the other way. And you might be like, well, but that doesn't make sense to me. And so there's gonna be some friction or resistance going on in your head, potentially. But that's actually a good thing because Einstein had a quote, right, which I love, and that is, what was it? What did he say? He said something like, it was a couple of quotes, but here's another one. I don't think it was by Einstein actually, but what he said, or what this quote said, is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. Okay, so in this situation, if you're thinking the same way all the time, it's insane to think you're going to get a different result. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is give you a new way of thinking so you can get that other result. Okay, so let's continue here. So here's the agenda today. So the agenda today is on how you can use your mind to help you succeed. Again, probably not ever been taught to you before because over 90% of the world's population does not understand this. And honestly, I think once you learn this, you're going to put yourself at the next level. Okay, so we're going to look at thinking skills of the elite. Okay, and a lot of times you might say, you know, this person is so wealthy or this person has done so well, but you may not actually see them work very hard to get there. And there's a reason for that. Okay, and you're going to understand why and how they got there without putting in that much effort, and they weren't too stressed out about getting there, right? So we're going to look at counterintuitive thinking, and we're going to look at subconscious thinking, or the subconscious mind. We're going to actually delve deeply on that in these areas, and I think you'll get a lot of insight based on that. And then we'll give you some examples of how successful people think. And they don't think like the rest of us. They think very differently, okay? So the first thing you want to look at here is this whole concept of counterintuitive thinking. So counterintuitive thinking is actually a concept that just kind of blew me away. And when I started grasping this whole concept of counterintuitive thinking, I started to realize that if we can use counterintuitive thinking in certain areas of our life, we can get exceptionally better results. So the problem is that sometimes when you look at doing things counterintuitively, it may seem unreasonable, illogical, reasonless, senseless, untenable, nonsensical, faulty, implausible, absurd. Basically, it may even seem wrong. So a lot of people won't do it because it just seems wrong. Okay, so very important to understand that although sometimes things may seem wrong, it actually could be the best strategy for you. Okay, so let's just go a little bit deeper. So the majority of the population thinks intuitively. So the majority of the population is going to think, well, it just makes sense to do it this way. And they're probably right. It probably does make sense to them. But here's where things get interesting. And that is that the majority of our population also does not achieve the goals that they want. So although the majority thinks intuitively, the majority also does not achieve the goals that they want. So maybe we stop thinking intuitively and we start thinking counterintuitively, so we get better results and the results that we want. Okay, so here's some examples. So I know this has to do with school, so I'm going to try and keep it with school, but there's also other contexts we can look at. So less than 10% of university students get a 4.0 GPA, less than 10%. Yet all students are told to work hard and study a lot. So maybe that's not the best advice. Maybe there's something else that they need to do instead of working hard and studying lots. Okay, maybe there's something else that they didn't know about that the 4.0 students know about. Okay, 87% of employees in the US are unhappy. So I'm extrapolating and I'm assuming this probably goes across North America, because Canada is not too different from the US. Maybe it's a little bit higher, but the majority of people in North America, and we're using US as an example, are unhappy at work. So why would we listen to what the majority is doing if they're unhappy at work? Okay. About half of the world's population is controlled by 1% of individuals. Sorry, world's wealth is controlled by 1% of individuals. So then why would we listen to the majority of the population who are not wealthy? It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of financial planners out there that tell you how to build wealth, but are they themselves wealthy? If they are, then it might be good to listen to them, but majority of wealth planners aren't actually quite wealthy. So why would we listen to those people who are struggling financially? Right? So that's a question. Less than 5% of athletes make it into the professional sports. So if that's the case, then should we not listen to the 5% that actually make it into the sport? So maybe those individuals had done something different than, the 95%. So I'm giving you this just as an example, right? That the majority aren't actually where they want to be, right? So the key point is that, look, if the majority are not, if there's a majority of a population, I don't know if I put this correctly, but it says if the majority are doing it, there's probably a better way to do it. So this is what I'm trying to say here, that if the majority are doing something, there's probably a better way. And I know it's very counterintuitive, it doesn't make sense, but if the majority are doing it, it's probably a better way. Okay, and because the majority are not actually getting the results they want, maybe there's a better way to do it. Okay, so this whole concept of counterintuitive thinking is important. Okay, and it can be offensive to some people because they're working really hard and they're like, no, I'm working hard and I should be getting better results. And then what's worse is they'll see somebody else who's actually doing something very different, and that person who's doing something different is getting a lot better results. But the person who really wants the better results will not let go of their intuitive thinking. And they'll keep on doing the thing that makes sense to them. They won't let go of it. And so they'll never get the better results. Okay, very important to understand that your thinking sometimes, in fact, in almost all situations, is usually the problem. Okay, so the key here is stop listening to the majority. Okay, now, why would you listen to 90% of the population at school who is actually not doing well in school? Why don't you listen to the top percentage who are doing well and find out what they do? Okay, that just, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense. So here's some examples of what the majority do and just some thoughts. Okay, so let's talk about a few concepts here. So one of my students was being distracted by her cat. So the majority of the population would probably do something like, well, let's put the cat in a different room. Let's, I don't know, sell the cat. Let's go away. Let's not study at home because that's where the cat is. But the student, in my opinion, was a genius because she actually did something very counterintuitive. And what she did was she ended up buying another cat. So this was very good because she didn't feel guilty leaving her cat alone. In fact, she helped her original cat make a friend by buying another cat. So now what happens is the student is happy and both cats are happy. Why? Because she thought counterintuitively. And I don't know that many students would think that way, but she was a very, I thought, a very innovative thinker. So here's another one. When people try to impress others, what do you think normally happens? When people try to impress others, who try to show off that they have a lot of money, they try to brag about the things that they've done, they try to buy expensive cars and make a lot of noise driving these cars. What ends up happening is when people try to impress, they actually are more disliked. Okay, so the key here is that the more you're trying to impress someone, the more it's probably not going to help you. Okay, and again, you want to understand this because intuitively, if you're trying to impress, it should work, right? It should work, but the reality is most people will dislike you. Here's another one. The more knowledge you obtain, okay, the more knowledge you obtain, the more you realize how little you know. So this is, again, not intuitive thinking. But if you really look at the individuals who just are full of knowledge, they'll probably tell you that they don't know that much. It's the ones that are midway who think they know a lot. Those are the ones that actually, who try to impress you with all that they know. Those are the ones that actually realize eventually that it's not really working for them. Okay, and the ones that actually know a lot will realize there's so much that they don't know. Okay, and the fastest way to make more friends, again, counterintuitive, is to enjoy your own company first. So this is what really does work, but most people aren't going to tell you this, right? Because most people are thinking intuitively. So most people are going to tell you, hey, if you like someone and you want to get to know them, try to impress them a little bit, and that's actually going to counterbalance. That's actually going to be counterproductive. And most people are going to say, learn a lot, because if you learn a lot, then you'll have like lots of knowledge. But the reality is that the more you learn, you realize, man, there's just so much more to know. Okay, and then if you want to make more friends, don't try so hard to make more friends. What you want to do is start to get to know yourself better and enjoy yourself. Okay, so these are some counterintuitive thoughts I thought I would share with you, and I'll share a few more because it's actually not easy to grasp for the majority of us. And this is what we're going to talk about now, and that is conscious versus subconscious mind. Okay, so I like this picture because I think this really depicts how the conscious and the subconscious mind works. So basically the way it works is that your subconscious mind is what people kind of call the analytical mind or the logical mind. Okay, and that's above the surface. And this is what we can control. Okay, this is what drives our logical thinking and makes up 10% of our brain. Okay, so we kill ourselves on trying to be logical and analytical and think in a very logical way. But then there's the subconscious mind, which is actually what actually drives our behavior, and it's done through our emotions, which is actually 90%. So what happens here is that when you're trying to do things and you're only thinking consciously, you're actually not as effective as you could be if you start paying attention to your subconscious mind, which really depends on the emotions that you're feeling. Okay, so here's a very good example. Okay, a lot of times people will date somebody who's not good for them. Okay, the person's not good for them. Okay, and what ends up happening is they won't leave that person. Even though they know the person's not good for them, they won't leave that person. The reason for this is because they have a fear of leaving that other individual, and maybe that fear is that they'll be alone, or maybe they'll never find somebody else. So it's the emotion that's driving that behavior, because logically they know that they should get out, but they don't. Okay, so this is a very good example of why your subconscious mind needs to be addressed if you want to start thinking in a more effective manner. Okay, because your logical mind may make sense to you, but it doesn't mean you'll take that action, even though it's logically the thing to do. So what happens when our conscious mind and our subconscious mind do not agree? Well, let's play a little game. Let's see what happens. Okay, so here's a situation. Okay, let's see who the winner is. So the situation is that I know I have to study, but I binge watched Cobra Kai on Netflix. Okay, so you binge watched Cobra Kai on Netflix, even though logically you knew you had to study. So who was the winner on that one? Is your subconscious mind, because you were really having a good time watching that TV show. Here's another one. I know that I need to eat healthy, but I ate 3 pieces of chocolate cake and I had some ice cream. So what happened there? Logically, you knew you had to eat healthier, but the taste of the chocolate cake and the ice cream was so good, so you gave in and your subconscious mind was the winner. Let's look at this one. I know I have to study, but my friends wanted to hang out. So I hung out with them. Again, logically, you know you should have studied, but you didn't. You hung out. So who's the winner? Subconscious mind. I knew I should work out, but I stayed on Instagram and TikTok for 2 hours. And this happens all the time to students, all the time. They're on social media a lot. So who won on that one? Subconscious mind. And just so you know, your social media actually is set up for you to hijack your subconscious mind. Okay, so a lot of things that are going on is to attract your emotion so you can actually get that. They can actually get you to do stuff. So, for example, when you get a like on social media, what that does is it activates something called dopamine, which gets you to feel good for a minute or for a second because somebody liked your post or whatever. And that is the social media company hijacking your subconscious mind. So what you need to do is actually understand how this whole thing works so you can get control and start affecting your subconscious mind in a much better way so it helps you do the things that you need to do. Okay, so the lesson here is that your subconscious mind or your emotional mind will always win in the long run, because your logical mind can't always get you to do the thing that's logical. Okay, so you must address your emotions to take better long-term action. Okay, so how do you do this? Let's talk about it. All right, so let's look at some key points here, okay? So the first one is that, like I had just mentioned, we need to address our subconscious mind if we want long-term behavior change. You might be able to change your behavior for the short term if you just use logic. But if you want long-term behavior change, you have to start playing with your subconscious mind, which is also your emotional mind, okay? So the key thing that I want to state here is that we usually take action when we become uncomfortable. So most people would say, no, that's not always true, but maybe not. But let's look at what happens in the real world here, okay? So here's some examples. Most students actually won't start their homework until they feel pressure and the stress to do so. Okay, so it was the stress and the pressure that actually caused them to eventually do their homework. But logically, they knew they should have started sooner. So point being here is that logic actually lost out to the emotion of the feeling of pressure and stress. Okay, so an example which is you can actually see this in not just school, but in lots of areas of life, that it's usually the pressure and the stress that cause people to take the action and not the logic. So again, subconscious mind wins on this one. So most of my students, here's another example, most of my students seem to get more motivated after they fail an assignment or an exam. So logically, you might be able to say, oh, it's because they failed and now they need to get a better grade. But I would say it's because they actually realized that there's a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen if they continue down the path that they're taking. Okay, logically, they knew they should have taken school more seriously, and they knew that they spend a lot of time and money in school, and they knew they should have logically got their work done. But it was only after they failed an assignment or an exam did they actually take it more seriously. Why? Because the feeling of failing and the feeling of not doing well just got to them. And so that would cause them to take the action that they needed to take. Here's one which is a little bit more serious. My friend's father stopped smoking after he was told he has cancer. So logically, he knew that smoking was bad for health, but it was only after he had been told he had cancer that he stopped. So the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes the way human nature is sometimes, the way human nature works is that unless we're going to feel bad about something, we're not going to do it. But for those individuals who actually grasp this, they understand that they don't want to get to this point. They actually want to take the action earlier so it never gets to the point where they start feeling these negative emotions. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is explain to you that if you understand this material that I'm about to teach you, you can get yourself to take much better action and more healthier action ahead of time, which will give you much better results. And the way you can do it is by addressing your subconscious mind as well as your conscious mind. So you need to address your emotion as well as your logic. So here's some new forms of thought. Okay, in this program, you're going to be taught how to think like a successful person, okay, which is the key to succeeding in school and in life. Okay, so this means that if you're going to think like everybody else, you're probably going to get the same results as everybody else. So you cannot actually afford to think like everybody else because, like I showed you, they just are not getting the results that most people want. Okay, the way we do this is through counterintuitive approaches, and I've shared a few of them with you. Okay, you want to also use your subconscious mind. Okay, so that means you also have to address your emotions. If you're not addressing your emotions, you're only using your logic, and that'll only take you so far. So the majority of the population will not agree or understand with some of your choices or your behaviors. Why? Because they're using their conscious mind and they're thinking intuitively only. What you want to start doing is start thinking counterintuitively and start also using your subconscious mind. Okay? So this is why it's always not a good idea to think like the majority, and you need to think for yourself. Because the majority is probably going to get you to do things that everybody else is doing. But I'm guessing you're taking this training because you don't want to get the same results everybody else is getting. You want to get substantially better results. Okay, so here is a table which I think, again, might help you understand what I'm talking about. So most people are going to tell you, you should go to class to learn. Okay, and I'm going to tell you that you should go to class to do something different. And that is, you should never go to class to learn. And that is, you should go to class to filter valuable information and pay attention to the nonverbal communication. And this was addressed in the previous class. If you're going to class to learn everything, then you're going to be missing out on what is valuable and what is not. Because your professor or your teacher is communicating nonverbally what is valuable. But if your head is down and you're not paying attention to all this material, all this nonverbal stuff that's going on, you're going to miss out. So don't go to class to learn. Instead, go to class to filter out what is valuable and what is not valuable. Number 2, people will say stress is not good for you. Don't allow stress in your life. And my response would be that some stress is necessary. Okay, because if you have too little stress, it'll keep you unmotivated, and too much stress will give you anxiety and you can't function. But again, the majority will say stress is not good for you, so you cannot think like the majority. You need to actually understand that some stress is good for you. Here's another one. I will be happy after I succeed. So this is very common. I hear this all the time. I will work really, really hard, and once I succeed, I'll be happy. Well, here's the reality. The reality is you must be happy now if you want to succeed. And most people don't know this part because they're thinking happiness comes at the end. And I'm saying happiness is part of the journey. Okay, so enjoyment increases your motivation level, your desire, and your persistence. So this is why you need to be happy now, because when you have challenges now, and if you are not a happy person, you will not be able to stay motivated, you won't be able to deal with challenges, and you won't be able to persist during the difficult times. Okay, and also enjoyment is extremely valuable because when you're enjoying something, your mind starts to work in a much better way, which causes you to come up with innovative and creative solutions to problems. So if you look at the most successful individuals, they're very happy at work. And as a result of being happy, that's why they succeed. Other people are going to say, I need to make money, right? So a lot of people want to make money, right? So they'll say, I need to make money. I want to make money. I'm going to work really hard to make money. And what I'm saying to you is that, like, if you want to be rich, don't think about making money. Think about how you're going to give away value. How do you give away lots of value so you can be rich? That's how the really successful people think. They understand that they have to give first in order to get. The people who struggle with money, they think it's all about getting money. Okay, the reality is you have to think about how do you give value to other people, and as a result of giving lots and lots of value, you'll be wealthy. Okay, so when you give value to people, what ends up happening is you automatically build trust, you build better relationships, and then you start creating opportunities for you to receive things in life. Very important. And if you can just learn these concepts, you'll start to really see a big change in your life. And as a student, right, maybe instead of talking about money, but as a student, maybe what you can do is you can teach your other students concepts. You can teach them things that you've learned. You can teach them ways that they can actually grasp in the material better. And what do you think will happen? Maybe they'll do well on the test. They might even beat you. Fair. But here's where it gets interesting. Maybe there'll come a time when you need them. And maybe they can help you when you're having challenges. In fact, that's actually what happened to me. I was studying for a course and I was doing well in the course, one of the few that I was doing well in. And I had a friend of mine and he didn't know what he was doing, so I helped him. We did our assignment together and that was it. And then I remember what happened was I needed to do well in another class to get into the faculty that I wanted to get into. And I really was failing. But that guy who I had helped, he was there and he knew I was struggling. And if it wasn't for him, I would not have got into the faculty that I wanted to get into. And because of him, I got my degree in the Faculty of Commerce. So the point being is that I created an opportunity to be helped by actually helping other people. Okay, and this works with money, this works with all areas of life, in relationships as well. So very valuable to know. So here's your assignment. I'd like you to think of 3 areas of your life where you're getting poor or average results by following the crowd. So where are you getting poor or average results by following the crowd? So maybe you're studying really, really hard and you're not getting good results. So that's because the crowd told you to do it. So maybe that's an area, okay? Now what I want you to do after that, after you've come up with 3 areas of your life where you're getting poor or average results by following the crowd, I'd like you to build elevated thinking in this area. So by doing this, I'd like you to ask yourself, if I was a genius, what would I think? If I was a genius, what would I think? And then I want you to start implementing these new strategies. And it's not going to come easy to you at first. In fact, some of these ideas you might come up with may sound wrong, but probably those are the best ideas that you could come up with. Okay, so by you asking yourself if you're a genius, what you're doing now is you're telling yourself that I'm not going to think the way I always used to think. I'm going to start thinking like a genius would think. And when you do that, you'll get way better insight and way better ideas. Again, it may take a bit of time, but keep asking yourself this question on a regular basis and you'll start to get really, really good ideas. And you'll get better strategies along the way. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So here's the summary. And the summary is what we did today. We actually looked at how our mind can help us succeed. We looked at concepts that 90% of the population do not understand. We looked at counterintuitive thinking. We looked at how to use your subconscious mind. And then I gave you in-depth ideas of how successful people think. And a lot of it has to do with counterintuitive thinking and how to use their subconscious mind. Okay, great. We'll see you next week and enjoy your homework. Bye-bye.